And welcome back to Flashpoint. A new study shows 1 in 3 Carolinians are already suffering from voter fatigue. Hey, we haven't even voted yet. We've been talking about the election since July of 2017 when it comes to presidential politics. That's when John Delaney, remember him? He was the first major candidate to announce his campaign for president. Yeah, I don't remember him either. That was 2.5 years before the 2020 Iowa caucus. We're still 10 months out from what many politicians and pundits have declared the most important election in our history. We should say, even if you're not into the presidential race, there are other really important things on the ballot. You already know this if you've already early voted, but we're talking about county commission. We're talking about a state treasurer. You're aware of that. The governor, the General Assembly, the Tom Tillis race as well. So there's lots there on the ballot for folks not to get fatigue about. I'll start with you, Brad.
Yeah, you know, I think people have the ability to compartmentalize in their lives. I think most people, unlike those of us on this set, I think most people wake up, they think about their jobs, they think about their children, their families, and what they're going to do each day. And when it's election time, I don't think the fatigue is going to bear on it.
Is it something you see out? I mean, you're campaigning. Do you hear from people? I'm sick of this stuff.
You know, as a candidate for March 3rd, Super Tuesday, I do see a lot of excitement when I talk to voters about voting in the election. Not sure who they're going to vote for president. So I think they're fatigued in terms of all the debates and all the television ads, but they're excited to vote. And for Democrats, I think excited to vote in November. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty over who to vote for. I agree, Brad, though, very much that, you know, I think political pundits, people who are living and breathing this, we tend to, you know, think that we're super into it. How come other people aren't? Most people are going to wake up the day of the election, and for these lower down ballot races like the one I'm in, they're going to look at a piece of mail, a television ad, someone they meet, a recommendation from a trusted friend, and they're going to vote. And I think that's how it's been for a long time in North Carolina.
Yeah, and I can't encourage people strongly enough to go online, look at their sample ballot, know what all is going to be on it, and do the research, because they definitely know who they want to vote for president or U.S. Senate, but they're not going to necessarily know as much about the candidates for North Carolina Treasurer. They're not going to know as much about the General Assembly candidates. And the General Assembly, frankly, is going to have as much of an impact on their day-to-day life as the president is. And yet people will walk in there and go, oh, I didn't realize I was going to be on there. I don't know any of these people. And that doesn't do any favors to the state.
Yeah, and all you have to do is just get on Google and search NC sample ballot, and you fill out like a quick form of like 3 questions about your name, date of birth, county, and it pops up. And that way, at least you can go in and you can be aware of what's on that ballot and be a informed voter. Definitely recommend you do that. By the way, this week, the North Carolina Court of Appeals confirming you will not need your ID when you go in and vote. At least not right now. You may remember the voter ID law was written after voters passed a new constitutional amendment in 2018 requiring a photo ID to vote. Well, this week, a second court now ruling that African-American voters could be harmed by the way the law behind the amendment was written. It's not a permanent ban on voter ID, but it simply blocks the law from going into effect while that lawsuit is still underway and while you go and vote in this primary. Brad Overcash, I know you're not a fan of this.
Yeah, the people of North Carolina voted for this. This was initially enacted by the General Assembly, but when that didn't work through the court system, the people of North Carolina voted for it. 83 out of 100 counties, 55% of the vote in 2018, what many called a blue wave election, certainly a Democrat Party slanted election, still 55% of the voters and 83 out of 100. And I think this is ridiculous. The people of North Carolina want common sense, voter ID. They voted for it directly. How much more small d Democratic can you get than that?
The North Carolina voters at one point also voted to discriminate against same-sex couples' right to marry, and that wasn't right either. So sometimes it's not just about what the majority wants, it's about what's right is right. This has been and continues to be a solution in search of a problem.
And you know, as a first-time candidate, one of the reasons I ran is I want to make our democracy stronger. I think our democracy is stronger when more people vote. And you know, when you look at the way the law was implemented after it was passed, that is the issue that the court has with the current implementation. The second time a court has thrown that out. And I think if we find a way to implement it that is fair and not discriminatory to different groups, that would be a different matter. But the court is saying that's not the case, and it's making it less likely that it'll be in effect for the 2020 elections.
Do you think there's actually, and I'm skeptical of this, but do you think there is some common ground on this issue between, say, Republicans and Democrats, that you could actually come up with a compromise solution? I don't know that there is, but let me be like, you know, naive and I just wonder, is there, or is it what I've said before, that I feel like Democrats don't trust the Republican motivation on it to begin with, and so trying to find some common ground or trust is just not going to happen.
The law that was just suspended by the court, that's the common ground.
That's not common ground.
Senator Joel Ford. Senator Joel Ford was one of the co-sponsors of that legislation, and prominent Democratic senator, along with the Republicans in the Senate, pushed that legislation forward. It was bipartisan in support for the constitutional amendment to put it on there, and that's the clear common ground. It's only the limited left-leaning judges that can't seem to understand that.
Were there any other Democrats besides Senator Ford that were champions of that?
I'm not sure who all was on the co-sponsor list, but I know that he was a lead title sponsor.
Have you guys lost the battle in this, though, when it comes to the messaging of it? Because Republicans have done an expert job of framing this as a common sense law, whether or not you believe that or not.
I'd rather us be winning the argument in the actual courts, not in the court of public opinion.
And I think our country's stronger when more people vote. I'd like to be on the side of the group of people or the party, whatever it is, who wants more people to participate in our democracy. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, and with all the turnout in 2018, that was participation. Yeah. People get frustrated when they're asked, do you want to amend your Constitution? Yes, we want to do it. And then an elitist court strikes that down.
All right, well, at least for the time being, you don't have to show your ID when you go vote. More Flash Point after this.